You wake to the toll of chapel bells, their iron voices echoing through stone halls, summoning the faithful to dawn prayers. The year is 1491 AD, and you serve as a lady-in-waiting to the most formidable woman in Christendom, Isabella I of Castile, Queen of Spain. Bare feet sting against the chill marble as you hurry through the Alcazar of Segovia, balancing a basin of rose water and fresh linen. The air is heavy with incense, yet beneath it lurks a sharp, organic stench that twists your stomach. You pause outside the royal chamber, listening to the queen's muffled voice through thick oak doors. She is praying, as she has for endless hours. Latin syllables pour like a relentless river, punctuated by the faint rattle of beads sliding across her fingers. When you enter at last, she kneels before a vast crucifix, still dressed in the same white shift she swore to wear when Granada fell. Once pure linen, now stained with sweat, streaked with blood from self-whippings, and blotched with darker marks you dare not identify. The odor strikes like a blow, mingling with sweet smoke to form a nauseating cloud of holiness and rot. You place the basin down, careful not to disturb her trance, but as you step closer, dread seizes you. Tiny black specks crawl across the fabric, fleas, dozens, thriving in the folds of her unwashed clothes. Before plunging deeper into these forgotten fragments of human survival and suffering, if you enjoy unraveling the buried truths of history, consider tapping that like button and subscribing for more unsettling stories. And tell me in the comments where you're tuning in from. I'm always struck by how we gather here, scattered across the globe, yet connected by the same hunger to uncover what time tried to conceal. The tale you just stepped into is not entirely false, but neither is it wholly true. For centuries a rumor has clung stubbornly to Isabella of Castile, the ruthless queen who forged Spain and financed Columbus' gamble westward. According to legend, Isabella swore a vow never to change her undergarments until Granada, the final Muslim city in Iberia, fell. The siege dragged on for 8 months, and allegedly, so did her unwashed linen. Some versions stretch it to a decade, others pin the tale to later queens, especially the odd Habsburgs, famed for their twisted piety and strange bodies. The story mutates with each retelling, but its core image endures, a powerful woman so consumed by faith that she embraced filth, which even peasants would shun. Historians today dismiss the story as myth, either propaganda meant to sanctify Isabella as a holy warrior or smear her as a fanatic. Yet the fact this image spread and survived half a millennium reveals something deeper about her world, a world where holiness and horror walked hand in hand. To understand why this myth resonates, we must crawl inside the medieval imagination, where dirt, devotion, and authority were bound together in ways almost impossible for us to fathom. 15th century Spain lived between two worlds for 700 years. Christian armies had slowly pushed Muslim rulers south in the Reconquista, a holy war that ended when Isabella conquered Granada in 1492. This was more than armies clashing, it was cultures colliding, shaping even private rituals like washing. In the Islamic kingdoms of Al-Andalus, cleanliness was both sacred duty and daily rhythm. Public bathhouses called hammams filled every city. Muslims washed before each prayer. The Quran exalted purity as half of faith. Baths were not grim tubs, but wonders of engineering: arched chambers, heated pools, marble benches where men and women at separate hours soaked, scrubbed and socialized. Their water flowed through aqueducts and pipes that still echoed Roman genius. But among Christians, bathing was eyed with deep suspicion. To churchmen, public baths were pits of temptation, steamy places where naked flesh blurred social lines between rich and poor, men and women. Worse, bathing smacked of Islam, Judaism, and ancient pagan rites, the enemies of the cross. Church fathers declared that baptism itself washed away all need for water again. To wash the body was to strip off Christ's shield and invite demons into the pores. The truly holy, it was said, reeked of sweat and blood, their odor the perfume of martyrdom. Isabella was born and bred in this creed of sacred filth. Born in 1451 at Madrigal de los Altos Torres, Isabella was the daughter of John II of Castile and Isabella of Portugal. Her childhood was scarred by civil war, treachery, and assassin shadows. In such a world, survival outranked comfort. The royal court she grew in was a moving city of thousands, nobles, priests, guards, dogs, and horses shuffling castle to castle, devouring each region's food before rolling on like a swarm. Imagine the stench: sweating bodies crammed into halls, chamber pots brimming over, rotting scraps thrown to snarling dogs, horses fouling the courtyards without pause. In 1468, When Isabella was 17, she witnessed a horror that burned into memory. Plague erupted in the Alcazar of Segovia, where the court was lodged. The Black Death had haunted Europe for a century, slaughtering 1/3 of lives each time it flared. It began with rats. They stumbled out from the walls at midday, clotted with blood and pus. Then came the flea swarms of them, abandoning their dying hosts for fresh flesh. Soon servants collapsed with fever and swollen buboes the size of apples. Bubbling with black corruption, Isabella watched them writhe and die, begging for their mothers in their last breaths. Physicians in beaked masks stuffed with herbs were useless, ordering bleedings, purges, and prayers to no avail. What struck Isabella most was who lived and who died. The greasy kitchen boys, the filthy stable hands. They survived, but nobles who washed their hands, even a little, fell in droves. To her, the message was clear. Cleanliness killed. Dirt, on the other hand, seemed divine protection. This belief made sense in a culture where saints were praised for filth. Catherine of Siena supposedly drank pus from wounds. Francis of Assisi was famous for never washing after touching lepers. To modern eyes these are madness, but to their age, they were proof of holiness. The body was a cage for the soul, a nest of sin. To clean and perfume it was vanity. To mortify it was salvation. Isabella absorbed this fervor deeply. She flogged herself, weekly, stripped to the waist in private chapels, lashing her back until blood streamed down her skin. Her linen undergarments soaked up the mix of sweat and blood until they became, to her mind, holy relics, garments heavy with suffering, binding her closer to Christ. It was in this mindset that she faced Granada in 1491. Before battle she allegedly knelt in Cordoba's cathedral and vowed not to change her shift until Granada fell. Was it fact or fable? No record proves it. Yet vows of this kind were common pacts with heaven, sealed by fear of eternal damnation if broken. And Isabella was nothing if not a woman of vows. The Siege of Granada was not a single assault but a long tightening of the rope. Isabella and Ferdinand founded a new city, Santa Fe, just outside the walls. From there they starved Granada into surrender. For 8 months she lived amid dust, fire, smoke, and the reek of thousands of soldiers. If she kept her vow, the toll must have been immense. The Andalusian summer roasted at over 100 F. Visitors noted Isabella's gaunt face, her eyes burning with fervor. She prayed constantly, often standing for hours before makeshift altars. They whispered that she carried a strange odor, not entirely foul, but earthy, like dried herbs and old leather. Fleas, said to swarm her garments, were seen not merely as pests but demonic torments. Miniature devils sent to test her soul, to endure them, silently marked her sanctity. Medieval medicine, rooted in humors, only encouraged this. Doctors claimed sweat and oils preserved the body's balance. Washing stripped them away, leaving flesh vulnerable to illness. To Isabella and her peers, filth was not a curse but a shield. Stories of holy women in Spain echo this belief. Maria di Santo Domingo never washed her hands for 30 years. Catalina di Cardona wore the same hair shirt for decades, so caked in filth it could stand on its own. To the Inquisition, which Isabella herself founded, cleanliness aroused suspicion. Those who bathed too often were suspected secret Muslims or Jews. Medicine gave cover. Doctors claimed washed skin invited disease, while the stink of unwashed flesh offered unseen protection. Linen itself added another layer. Unlike wool or silk, linen sprang from flax, pure, plant-born, seen as holy and incorruptible. Burial shrouds were linen. Angels were clothed in it. To wear linen near the skin was to be shielded, and the longer it soaked up a person's blood, sweat, and tears, the more powerful it became. Thus, a queen's unwashed shift could be seen as a relic, charged with spiritual force. The longer she wore it, the holier it grew. The siege ended in January 1492, when Boabdil surrendered Granada. According to legend, Isabella finally shed her garment. It was so stiff with filth it could stand upright like armor forged from human decay. Whether real or exaggerated, Granada's fall marked a turn. Within months, Columbus would sail west with her blessing. The same zeal that drove her to embrace filth would carry her faith across oceans. Yet this legend of linen carries heavy meaning. For a queen to degrade herself with dirt was not weakness but strength. Only a ruler untouchable could dare look so repellent. Only a woman commanding absolute power could turn self-abasement into a crown. It also desexualized her. In a man's world, she made her body repulsive, shielding herself from being reduced to desire. Her filth became her armor. But the toll was real. Weeks in such garments bred bacteria, fungi, and parasites, itching and burning, which she interpreted as divine trial, were in truth infection. Some scholars suggest her later instability owed something to illnesses born of her own vows. At court, her example set a grim fashion. Foreign envoys remarked that Spain's nobility stank more than any in Europe. The French and Venetians complained that audiences with the royal couple required an iron stomach. This widespread filth fueled disease, parasites, skin rot, and fleas-carrying plague. That Isabella survived was perhaps luck or immunity, but her myth, like her rule, shaped a culture where dirt was godliness and purity suspect. 5 centuries later, the myth endures because it speaks to a knees still with us. It reveals how faith can twist flesh into battlefield, how power can sanctify even decay. Isabella may never have worn that shift for months, but the fact her world could believe it, could admire it, is what truly chills. To them, holiness was not clean hands but hands scarred by the whip. Salvation was not scented soap, but fleas biting in the night. And in this lies the shadow of the medieval mind, where devotion and degradation were one, where suffering was sacred, and where the most powerful woman in Europe could be praised not for what she conquered outside, but for what she endured within.